People principle number 18. People principle number 18 is the 101% principle. The 101% principle says, find the 1% that we agree on and give it 100% of our effort. Darryl Zanuck says, if two men on the same job agree all the time, then one is useless. If they disagree all the time, then both are useless. And the question I must ask myself is, can I find common ground, and will I give it 100% of my effort? Now, when do I practice this 101% principle? It is an incredible tool in anyone's relational toolbox. However, it's not something that can be pulled out and used all the time. I say that because this principle takes a big commitment of time, energy, and thinking. Therefore, before practicing this principle, you need to ask yourself some questions. I know that I'm a little vulnerable when I start helping you ask these questions, but this principle takes such time and effort, you have to ask these questions. Number one, is the person worth the commitment? Every person has great worth, but they don't all have the same relational worth to you. So you have to ask yourself, where do I use this 101% principle? Where do I find that 1% we agree on and give it 100% of my effort? Because there's a lot of things we're disagreeing on. Well, family, inner circle people. But you can't give 100% commitment to 1% you agree on with everybody. So you have to kind of evaluate, who do I do this with? Number two, is the situation worth the commitment? A lot of situations you don't have to do this 101% principle at all, because it's just going to pass. It's just here, and it's going to pass whether you give it a commitment or not. Number three, is the issue worth the commitment? What is the issue? Is the issue worth you giving 100% of your commitment? And number four, is the return worth the commitment? So let's talk about this 101% return. Practicing the 101% principle can benefit you in many ways. Here are six. One, it allows you to build a foundation for change. Why? It's very simple. Change always begins on common ground. Just recently, I was in Washington, D.C., and I was spending a day with the CIA. They're going through a lot of changes, and so they said, John, we'd like to have you meet with 14 top leaders and have a long lunch, but then we would like you to address about 500 or 600 of our people that are kind of leading departments about all the changes we're going through, and how leaders view change and how they handle change. And so it was a wonderful, wonderful time. But what I shared with them that day, I share with you. When change must occur, there's a temptation for us to look at differences. Well, if I change, this is going to be different, and this will be different. And what happens is differences tend to separate us. And what we do is, when we want to see change accomplished, the first thing we want to do is we want to find common ground. What do we all agree on? Let's start there. Let's start on something that we can, let's find the 1% we agree on, and let's give it 100% of our effort. That's the beginning of a successful change. A lot of times change never occurs because we find the 1% we disagree on, and we give it 100% of our effort. Number two, it prevents unnecessary conflict. This 101% principle really eliminates a lot of conflict. General Grant said, there never was a time, in my opinion, some way could not be found to prevent the drawing of a sword. Number three, it reduces the odds of making enemies. Emerson observed, he who has 1,000 friends has not a friend to spare, while he who has one enemy will meet him everywhere. Number four, it keeps something of value that could have been lost. When you practice this 101% principle, You really get to keep those things that you value and those people you value. In the paragraph in your notes, how many potentially rewarding relationships have you missed because you focused on the differences instead of the common ground? How many potential friends have slipped through your fingers? How many productive business associations have been forfeited? Former New York Yankees manager Joe McCartney observed, any manager who can't get along with a 400 hitter is crazy. Number 5, it helps you to feel good about your part of the relationship. The reason it helps you and I feel good about our part of the relationship is because we know we're doing our very best. I'm right now personally going through an issue in a relationship that is extremely difficult. Pretty much, I've got bad news for somebody that I care a lot about. And the only thing that gives me strength in this whole process, the only thing that gives me peace in this process is I know without question that I've given this effort 100%. I mean, I have not slighted it in any way. I've done my very best to make it work. Now, what I'm saying is, when you've done your very best to make it work, it doesn't always work. Isn't that true? We've all come up to the place where 100% wasn't enough. But when I walk away from a situation that doesn't work out good, and I know with integrity that I've given it my best shot, and that my motives have been right, and my effort has been total, I can walk away. Disappointed? Yes. But not devalued, because I gave that individual the very best that I could. Number 6, one more thing about the 100% principle. It enables you to make the best of difficult situations. The happiest people don't necessarily have the best of everything, they just make the best of everything. Adopting the 101% principle makes the best of every relational opportunity, and no one can be expected to do more than that.